And we're live. All right. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to He's Right on Time. Do a technology test. All right. We're logging in a little bit early just so we can get everything on the road. Hello, Bill Sang. Hey, Dale Barger is here. Who else is here? Greg Wilson, Josh Horn. Very good.
Hey, we did it.
I know, right? We didn't even pre-test or anything.
So I'm that guy that I have this way with technology to where it doesn't always work the way I want, and I and I got this thing about being late for things too. So
oh yeah. I thought about that. I go, Dwight, you're dealing with Dave Kovar. You better be on at the top of your game.
No, man. Anyway, I'm that guy that shows up 3 hours early for the airport. Just because I want to make sure.
Yep.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Long time no see.
Absolutely, it's been a while.
No see, yeah. So I know you think that there's so many directions that this conversation could go in. So, and I know that you think you're afflicted with ADHD, but I was patient zero growing up in Barbados for ADHD.
Oh,
right?
Okay. So who knows where this is going to go then?
Right. So listen. Let me ask you this. You woke up this morning, and did you work out this morning?
Yes, I did.
Right. Okay. Why? You're a guy. You've been around. You've been in martial arts for over 50 years. You got things in place. You got a successful business. You got a successful career. Why do you wake up this morning and do this?
Man, because that's what I do. It's just programmed. It's I mean, some people like to play piano. I like to. It's not like I pop up and go, oh great, I get to run 5 miles, or something like that. But it's just I just know how good I feel when I'm treating my body respectfully.
Yeah.
And then same with martial arts. So for me, it's kind of like I look at health and fitness as part of my martial arts training. You know what I'm saying? When I was younger, I didn't. When I was younger, it was martial arts, then maybe fitness, then health was somewhere down the line. But as my body's matured, the most important thing to me is waking up in the morning feeling good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I just know that the discipline of kind of following through just kind of transcends into everything else for me.
Yeah, I saw the because you turned close to 60 recently, I think.
I
right?
did. Yeah.
And I saw the photograph. So you got to tell us the secret. How did you avoid the stomach thing? Because yours is still flat.
Good lighting. How's that? Good lighting. No. I'm first off, I think it's a combination of being, kind of blessed with good genes. My father's, always been in good shape and kind of programmed that as a young age. And I eat pretty clean and I exercise pretty regular. And so I think it's kind of a combination of things, but I certainly, if I don't watch it, I can certainly, I can fluctuate pretty easy without a doubt. Yeah.
You mentioned your dad, and somebody said to me that your dad is the man, not you.
My dad's the man. My dad's the man. Yeah.
I saw a video of his when I was doing my research on you. I saw a video of you and him on the Focus Mitts. How long ago was that? Yeah,
I don't know. That was 3 or 4 years ago. But he's a guy that he's always been. He actually started as my student when he was in his late 50s. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
But he was always in shape. But he kind of wanted to be around his kids. And my brother Tim and I were running the school, and he figured, okay, that's what I got to do. So he started then. But he was always pretty fit, and his body was pretty well preserved. So he was able to extend stuff for quite a while. As a matter of fact, on YouTube, there's a video of him sparring 9 rounds for his 90th birthday. Now, they're very short rounds. They're 10-second rounds. But it's and then a couple years back when my son, who's now 24, it would have been 2 or 3 years ago. My dad's going to be 97 in a couple months.
Wow.
So. He sparred. It was really cool. My son was testing for an advanced degree in black belt, and my dad. It was great to center officiate my dad fighting my son. It was fortunately, yeah. So, so I think a lot of my he was a great role model for me. Still is.
Is he military? Was he military?
He was. He was
Okay.
in World War II. He was prisoner of war. Actually, he was survived a couple death marches, a near firing squad. Was was shot down on his 11th mission flying over Budapest, Hungary, in like 1944, near the end of the war. And
yeah, I should.
He's got quite a story. He's got quite a story. Yeah, you should. He's the man. Not me.
But I also heard that that he didn't want you to get involved in martial art. Do I have that
Yeah.
story right? But then Tim went off to college, studied martial art, and then came back and said, "You got to let Dave get into it."
Look at you, man. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's absolutely the truth. So it was something, kind of like in the mid-'60s, I saw a silhouette of a guy doing a flying sidekick on a billboard somewhere. We were living in Montana, and I didn't know what it was, but it's like, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It's kind of like I didn't find martial arts, like kind of like martial arts found me. I don't know, that's just, but my folks wouldn't have anything to do with it. And so, so I was able to wrestle. They let me wrestle, which was great, which I loved. But then when my brother went away to school, he came back and said, "No, man, you got to let Dave do martial arts." And so then that's when I started officially.
Right. Okay. So you started, then you start teaching, you open up your school, and everything has been cookies and cream since then.
Never cog. Everything's run perfect. Yeah. Just like everyone else. Right. Yeah, no issues ever. Said no one ever, right?
Yeah. All right. So for those who might not be familiar with you, let me make sure I get everything right. You're the head of chief instructor at Kovar's Satori Academies.
Yes, sir.
There's like 9 branches in the Sacramento area.
Yes, sir.
Right. And then you're the head of Kovar's system. So there's the martial art schools, and then there's the martial art business stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. All right. So I have to tell you about that. Remember I told you that I had a surprise for you.
Yeah.
Okay. You saved my martial art career.
Wow. Really?
Yes. Because I forget where it was. It might have been at Maya. It might have been at NAPMA or whatever. But you taught me how to set up the rotating curriculum.
Okay.
Okay. And within a few minutes of sitting in that classroom with you, I was like, this is what Jeet Kune Do needs. Right?
Interesting, right.
And then sometime after, when I went home and I started to put it together, I realized that the Junfan logo that we have with the yin yang and the arrows,
right.
that's the perfect depiction of the rotating curriculum.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Yeah. Right? Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I owe you that.
Okay, cool. Good. Glad to have been of a help of some kind.
Right. So you have, tell us about the start. You started at age 6 or so in what? Taekwondo, Kempo?
So no, I actually started, I started wrestling in 71. So when I was about 11 or 12.
Okay.
And so I actually have, this is like, I guess, 48 years of experience, 47 years. And and then in 73, in September 73 is when I started karate. So I was like 13.
Oh, okay.
And that was with an American Kempo. My instructor's name was Bruce Jutnick. He still does, in his circle, he's very well known, really an amazing martial artist. And I still have a relationship with him. And
he's known in the JKD world also.
Yeah.
He's got a very popular video about Dan Inosanto.
Yeah. Well, he's like in his younger days, he was a bit controversial. He would say what he used to be. If someone asked me who my instructor was, and I'd tell them I didn't know if they're going to hit me or hug me, But as the years have gone on, he's mellowed a little bit, as we all do. So he was very much into cross training early on, like from out of the gate. It was like in a lot of circles, you kind of. Especially back in the 70s, the first thing you'd ask was, you'd meet someone, oh, you're a martial arts, what style are you? And then you decide if you like the guy or not based on the answer they give you. Is that silly or what? But that's what we did, right?
Yeah.
And so Bruce was not, that was, he was pretty like you know, we were doing the school I started at, although it was an American Kempo school. I started right away doing Kodokan Jiu Jitsu, which was offered twice a week. And I actually started training under the lineage of Angel Cabalas and Sarada in 75 through his school as well. So he was a pretty progressive back in the day. You know, we did a lot of, so I was taught out of the gate to kind of, you know, have an open mind and grab what you can.
That background in Kempo explains why you're a black belt in over 10 different arts, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that explains it, because you Kempo people have the ability to memorize these sequences.
Right.
You can do it. Do you know Neil Coliff?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Neil
absolutely.
can do it. Dan Inosanto can do it. I
So-
hate all of you.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting? I shared with you when we were conversing back and forth a couple of weeks. I was at, you know, I was with Ron Balicki down in Southern California, and it was at his Mars camp for a couple of days. I was really honored to be able to be there for it, and he was doing a lot of stuff, and I've been to a lot of events, but you know, I'll tell you what, a lot of stuff that I hadn't done, I was able to relate it to an old American Kempo move, so I was often able to pick it up faster. Now that doesn't mean I retain it all, but that really does. There was so much curriculum in the American Kempo system that you kind of learned how to learn, you know, and a lot of that stuff, like I learned almost 400 self-defense techniques in 22 extremely long forms to get my black belt.
Right.
And I still remember all of it. By the way, it's like genetically embedded into me, because stuff that you learn when you're a kid, you just remember, you know. But it's all, although it was way too much material, to ever teach somebody, I don't have any regrets. I kind of look at it like old friends. I'm glad you have known them, but I'm not necessarily going to be talking with them all the time. If that makes sense. Yeah.
So you said November 73. August of 73 is when Enter the Dragon was released. So
yes, sir.
Was there any effect on you?
Oh, of course, massive. You know, it was a combination of Bruce Lee, who, by the way, I saw Enter the Dragon. You're not even going to believe me. I saw Enter the Dragon 37 times in a theater when it was still in a theater. I used to go, between that and Kung Fu, you know, that was the deal. That was it. I used to go with my friend, two friends. There was a movie theater called the Madison Square Four. For like 3 months, they played, the dual feature was Enter the Dragon, Return of the Dragon, right? And we would show up at the movie theater at like 11 in the morning, and we'd sack a lunch with us. We'd stay until 10 at night. We took a cassette player and tape. I can verbatim. I knew every word of Enter the Dragon, though everybody's part, not just Bruce Lee's part. Now, most of it's left me now. I can still get through a lot of it, though. Yeah, but that was definitely, absolutely a crazy strong influence on me, without a doubt.
Yeah. So then later on in the JKD world, you mentioned Ron Balicki, but you worked also with Burt Richardson. Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. Extensively in the late 90s. I spent 2 or 3 years training with him quite a bit. Yes.
Okay. So I have to ask you this. In your experience with JKD, have you come across anything that you consider to be a limiting factor in the way that JKD is put out to the public?
You know, it's a great question. I think there's, just from my perception, you know, I kind of feel like I'm a JKD guy. I don't say I am, because politically all the stuff that goes into it. But, you know, I mean, if I try to, you know, follow the, you know, using no way as way, and using no limitations as limitations, and, you know, absorbing what is useful, and all the, you know, I absolutely kind of have adopted that philosophy. What I teach is, you know, I call it Kempo blend, which is primarily, you know, based on Kempo with a lot of other stuff that I've integrated. But as far as what I see in the Jeet Kune Do world is, I mean, first off, how do I even answer this? Just from my perception, there's such a wealth of knowledge that sometimes that can work, just like American Kempo, that can work against people. You know, if you look at, like, I think Hick's law is the law that, hey man, too many options, you don't know what to do, right? You don't know how to respond. One option, you go with it. And that's not just, that's true. I see that if I was to pick something in Jeet Kune Do in general, that I think a lot of instructors do, is they might initially teach way too much curriculum to their students, so that it's harder for their students to be able to really function at a high level, you know, initially. I think it's kind of like the funnel needs to go like this: very, very, very light with curriculum at the beginning, and heavier overall, you know what I mean? So you have a strong base. My perception of the best JKD guys that I see are guys that started with some kind of a traditional base and then transferred to JKD. right? That just seems to be kind of like they had a, whatever it might have been. It might have been like a, hardcore Okinawan system or an American Kempo system or something where their basics are super solid. And then it seems like, from my perception, I could be totally off, that they can apply the concepts a little bit more effectively and thoroughly than sometimes some of the guys I've known that have been training in 3 or 4 years, that they kind of know a lot of stuff, but they really can't do anything really well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it does, because I think that one of the attractive things about Jeet Kune Do is that it is so free flowing.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't come into that with zero foundation.
Yeah, you have to have an alphabet before you can do any, before you can write anything. You have to have a structured alphabet that you can follow.
Yeah. So how many different martial art organizations do you belong to?
I'm very loosely involved in a few. So like I'm part of Pedro Sauer's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu organization. Of course, I have my own martial arts organization called the Satori Alliance, which is like a teaching organization where I kind of take in orphans, and kind of give them a platform. Yeah. I'm loosely involved. I'm not an official member of Doce Pares, although I've got rank in Doce Pares, and I'm still very tight with a lot of the guys. And so, but as far as like a fee-paying member, I'm not really. I'm part of my Kabuto and Iaido teacher, Shion Nakano Shiuchi, who I train with a couple times a month in Kabuto and Iaido. I'm part of his organization as well. Yeah. But most of the stuff, I'm kind of rogue, man. I just kind of, I try to just kind of do my own thing.
Right. Yeah. So because I wondered about that, because I wanted to know how you keep it all under control, and then what influence does it play in curriculum development? Mm-hmm. I mean, with all that you have in your head, all that you have under your belt, what's an approach to curriculum?
So it's a great question. I kind of look at and we're constantly, kind of looking at what we teach, right, and how we teach it. And so I look at 2 ways. I look at it for my pure selfish martial arts training. Yeah. I like to just try to isolate stuff. Like I still practice on. Like yesterday I was doing Tunkwa or Tunfa and bow staff, Okinawan Kabuto, right? Mm-hmm. And does it have a function in real world? Who knows? It's just cool. I like to do it. You're right. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, and I do a lot of jiu-jitsu, and I still do a lot of bag work and Kempo and Filipino weaponry. And when I'm practicing that with my advanced team, I will try to stay pure to that art. You know what I'm saying? Right. In other words, I'm really going to try to remember everything that I learned, how I learned it, just out of respect to my teachers and whatnot. Right. As far as the experience that I give to my students, I kind of decided, okay, because, being a black belt is very subjective. You know what I'm saying? Like what, what's the definition of using black belt as somebody that's got some reasonable martial arts skills, right? Yeah. But there's, everybody's got a different idea of what a black belt is and should be, right? Is it just purely your ability to kick butt in a self-defense situation? You know what I mean? And if that's the case, well, I don't want to digress too much. So what I did is I thought, all right, what do I want from my black belts? First off, I want them to be healthy, fit, good people that can defend themselves, that look like a martial artist, that have respect and some understanding of various styles, right? Okay. And that's kind of the guideline. So that's kind of how we build our curriculum. And one of the things that I think people make a mistake of doing is they go and they see something, learn something else, and they go back and they add it to their curriculum. And it's kind of like if you have the perfect recipe for cake, chocolate cake, you can't all of a sudden decide to double the amount of flour you add to the recipe, because it's not going to taste the same, right? So that's that balance of really of making sure that you don't have too much curriculum, because that's what I see a lot of times is that especially, it seems like my perception with modern adults especially is that they don't want a bunch of stuff they have to remember to practice at home. They want to get away from that crap, come down to the school 2 or 3 times a week and train hard for an hour. You know what I'm saying? So we try to require less, and our core program looks very similar to a karate, kickboxing core program. And then we add in, as they move up the ranks, we add in a certain amount of Filipino weaponry and Jiu Jitsu training in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of up to black belt. That's pretty much what they do. And then after black belt, what I do is I spoon feed in segments. Like, for example, we do like a rotating curriculum, as we talked about. We have 10 5-week rotations throughout the year, right? And so for like maybe 2 of those in a row, we might take something like trapping range skills. And that's what our black belts, that's what we're going to focus on. Now, not the whole class, not the whole hour, but 20 minutes out of that hour for a whole 10 weeks. And I'm going to try to teach it as pure as I can, right? I'm not like a karate guy trying to do Wing Chun. You know, it's the best I can do, right? And then what we'll do is that then we're going to switch gears, and we might do some Filipino weaponry for that 20-minute slot for 5 to 10 weeks. And so that's how I piecemeal other stuff to my black belts. And it seems to work good for us. We have really good retention with black belts, and you know, our core is what's very much a traditional striking art. That's what we look like. But they hopefully can, you know, they can dabble in other fields and look relatively like they know what they're doing. That would be my desire.
Okay. So what you described there sounds to me like what we would call in the JKD world the Jeet Kune Do concepts approach. Okay. Right. But if you had to advise a Jeet Kune Do instructor on how to approach what he would, and I'm talking about I'm talking about a Jeet Kune Do purist, right? Okay. Because I know you know a little bit of the politics and what have you. Sure. So a Jeet Kune Do purist, and that guy wants to know, how do I run a successful school? Would you have any advice for him?
Yeah, as far as curriculum goes, I mean, there's so much, but just kind of keeping it more focused on the mat for now. I think it's a balance of, in classroom, certainty and variety. That's the key. And what I mean by that is that if it's all certainty, meaning if you do the same thing the same way all the time, start to finish, people are going to get bored. Like you and I know, for self-defense and fitness, you don't need a lot of stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? You got some basics. That's all. A good boxer is going to do just fine in a self-defense situation. You know what I'm saying? Even if he can't kick, you know, because he's got some tools that he can use pretty effectively. So, so we try. So first and foremost, the flip side is if you have way too much variety, then people, first off, they don't ever develop their skills like they should, because there's too much. It's kind of like, you know, Bruce Lee's quote, "Do not fear the man who's thrown 10,000 kicks one time," right? Fear the man who's thrown one kick 10,000 times. So, with that concept, it's the balance between the two that keeps people training. So, for example, out of an hour class, this is being very general, but probably half that class should be something that they've, you know, like the warm-up should be the same, or maybe there's 2 or 3 different warm-ups that you do. There's a curriculum review, there's protocol that's consistent, because there's a level of comfort that comes in knowing what I'm supposed to do next. You know what I'm saying? And kind of getting into the routine of material, right? And really perfecting it, you know, really perfecting it. Like, you know, you go to a basketball game, what do they do before the game? They're doing free throws and layups, right? These are guys that have been doing this their whole life, that are the best in the world, and they're still practicing those basics. So really paying tribute to, you know, your basic skills, right, on a regular basis, and not ever, you know, deviating from them. And then the flip side of that is that doing something, doesn't have to be every class, but on a regular basis, that's completely new and different. And what I mean by that, it might just be a way of disguising, you know, you might still be practicing a front kick, but some new and completely drill that helps them expand it a little bit. So at the end of class, they have that combination of the two.
I gotta tell you, because I think that was another thing in that classroom where I learned about rotating curriculum. You said something about disguising the repetition. Yep. Well, okay. Now, I was a radical JKD guy back then.
I remember.
Right. I heard you say that, and I thought to myself, no, that's wrong. Why should I disguise the repetition? They got to know that repetition is the mother of skill.
I get it. They should. But everybody's still going to get bored if you keep doing the same thing the same way. Now, by the way, you can take a drill. Let's say we're doing his jab cross. That's it. All right. And we're going to do that for a half hour. And you could have them just do a jab cross, but there's so many ways. Like, for example, now we call it conductor effect. Now you're giving them something to focus on. Jab cross, turn your hip. Jab cross, step in. Jab cross, keep your hands up. Jab cross, breathe, poke. So what you're doing is you're giving them something to focus on, so that it's, do you see what I'm saying? And so they're able to get their mindful reps. So that would be a way to disguise repetition, right? Doesn't mean you have to do it. Yeah, it's just that you give them some different area of focus. Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Well, no. See, so let me tell you the full story. So I heard you say it, and I go, nah, he's wrong. And then I go, Dwight, he's more successful than you. Learn from it. And then I go, I know what I'd do. I would take the 4 basics of double stick: high, 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 low, 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 and low, high. So take that jab cross. So you go high jab, high cross, high jab, low cross, low jab, low cross, low jab, high cross, right?
There you go. Yeah. And that does it.
Yeah. So I absorbed what was useful from your lecture.
All right. Good deal.
Right. Okay. So you just mentioned 2 of the 6 human needs. I need
Yes,
you
sir.
to fill in the other 4. You talked
Yeah.
about the need for variety and the need for certainty.
The next 2 would be the need to fit in and the need to stand out. And that is, as humans, and this is especially important if you're running your school. These rules are gold. And the rule to fit in. So a new student comes in, and I don't care their age. You know, I don't care if it's a 6-year-old kid or a 23-year-old high-level athlete. They want to feel like they're part of the team, right? Yeah. So the sooner that you can, whatever that means for you to get, they introduce to other teammates, they're introduced in front of the class. For us, it would be awarding a white belt at being in a class, whatever it might be that acknowledges them as a team member. They get the shirt, whatever it is. And then the opposite of fitting in is standing out, right? And that is being acknowledged for a job well done. I mean, you can stand out because you screwed up, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that everybody, basically you stop the class and say, all right, look at Dwight. See how his guard is? It's perfect. Look, his hands are up, his elbows, and so you're thinking, hey, man, I'm feeling, you're feeling good. You're standing out for the right reasons. And then the last 2 are growth and contribution, which is another way of looking at it as getting, growth, contribution, giving, right? And that is that our students need to feel like they're improving, right? And there's a lot of ways that happens. One of the ways is that, hey, all of a sudden I did better in sparring, or I hit the bag harder than I ever had before, or you know what I'm saying? But it also can just be by acknowledgement from the instructor, or that's where tips, stripe, belts, ranks, all that stuff comes into play. You can say that doesn't matter, but I'll tell you what, the benefit, when you have whatever you're going to call it, right? Some kind of a next test coming up, what do? Human nature is you train harder. And it's not the rank, it's the preparation for it that maybe you wouldn't have trained as hard if you didn't do it. And then contribution, people want to be able to help out. So you can even have a 7-year-old white beginner kid contribute because he can show the other new kid where to put his shoes, you know what I'm saying, and how to sit straight. And so if you can really address those 6 human needs in your school, chances are really good you're going to keep your students a lot longer than you would have otherwise.
Yeah. Did you ever discuss with Bert, because I think Bert's on here, with Bert or Ron Balicki?
Really?
Yeah, I think he's on, right?
Hey, Sifu Bert. Hello, sir.
This is how I remember it. I don't want to say that we were told, but because I don't remember anybody specifically directing the conversation to me, but I got the idea in my early days of Jeet Kune Do, whatever it is the Taekwondo people are doing, we don't want to do that. Have you ever had a discussion like that with them, that we were so anti-commercialism? It's like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not with anybody specifically. Like I said, I have the utmost, respect for Sifu Bert and Sifu Ron. Man, I just had such a good time training with him a couple of weeks ago. He's such a wealth of knowledge; it's pretty incredible, right? And
he could be a Kempo guy with that memory of his.
right. And I still have my notes from training with Sifu Burton here. I was just looking over a couple of months back. But what I came across, and I'm not as much anymore, but what I came across probably 20, 25 years ago was a lot of kind of downplaying the importance of rank and tests and that kind of thing, right? Like we don't need that, and it's. And I think most guys that are running commercial or professional schools have realized that, hey, it's kind of nice to have some kind of, testing procedure for your students that keeps them training. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And so that would probably be. But what's interesting is that you know this, but it's kind of like having an open mind is exactly what Bruce Lee taught us to do.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So like that most of the guys that I know that tend to be open-minded because if they're from my interpretation, if they're really practicing Jeet Kune Do, then that would mean that they're going to be looking at other arts, not going, I'm not going to do that, but what can I glean? What can I learn from that?
Yeah.
Have they
Yeah.
always done it? No, there's been a couple knuckleheads that, you know, there's always going to be that. But
Yeah.
that stuff doesn't bother me as much as it once did. You know, now it's kind of like, hey, man, who am I to tell anybody else what their martial arts journey should be? Just like who is to tell me what my martial arts journey should be? You know, it's going to be different for all of us, and it's kind of, once again, it's very subjective, because if it's just about defending against the bad guy, you and I are probably not going to die in a back alley knife fight. You know, if it's probably going to be, from most people that you know and I know, are probably going to die of self-inflicted poor health. You know, I mean, they weren't eating right. And so if you're really looking at true self-defense, then that ought to be part of it in my mind. If you're really looking you know, the self-defense against the double Big Mac with cheese, you know, that should be part of our training, in my opinion.
I'm just going to follow your dad's formula. That's what I'm going to do.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to follow his formula. So what about, okay, so Michael Brown wants me to ask you, can you run an open, commercial, successful school teaching only Jeet Kune Do? I don't know if you think you're qualified to answer that or not. That's kind of the direction I was going to go in, right? What do you think
I think
about
absolutely, absolutely. See, running a school, it's not about, it's about getting new students and keeping students, right?
Yes.
And it's like, when you understand that what do I got to do, when someone comes in the door, if I can get them in the door, it's kind of like their mind to lose. What I mean by that is, if I present my curriculum in a way that makes sense, that's logical, and then I'm doing things like, I don't care what style you are. If somebody doesn't show up to class and they're a beginner, and you call them and say, hey, where are you, Dwight? Can you make up the class? That helps, right?
Yes.
So, like, for example, what I would recommend to him, there's 3 things that I would strongly encourage everybody to do if they want to be more successful if they're running a commercial school with their beginners. And number 1 is help them develop a love for martial arts. The sooner than they go, wow, this is so cool. Now, I call that a white belt moment. And a white belt moment is that aha moment where you had one, I had one. My white belt moment was, there was this kid, his name was George Morgan. He was the school bully. Like, he was legitimately a bully, right? Like, I mean, he beat people up. And I was a new kid on school, and I had this vision of him grabbing this kid that I saw with 2 hands against a chain link fence with a 2-hand chest grab, and pushing him against the wall, and like hitting him against this fence, and like literally knocking this kid out. Well, that image was seared in my memory bank. So when I finally started training, my very first class, I learned a defense against a 2-hand chest grab, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that was it. You know, that was like I walked out with my chest all puffed out because I was so proud. I was also like, come on, George, grab my chest. I'm ready, you know?
Yep.
But so that was my white belt moment. So
Yes.
regardless of the style, if you can get someone to leave thinking, wow, this is cool, that's number 1. Number 2 is you get them in the habit of coming to class, meaning most people that quit initially in their first a few months of training, and you know how often that happens, it's not because they didn't like your program. Usually it's because they never developed the habit. Here's what I mean by that. Right now, the new student comes and they're an new adult. They're going to come train with you on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, okay? Now, guess what they've been doing their whole adult life? They've been doing something else at Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 o'clock.
Right.
And what we have to do is we have to help them establish a new habit of coming with us on Monday and Wednesday. And if we can do that, then the third thing is really get them programmed for long-term training. The difference between someone that's training in martial arts and someone that's a martial artist. And what's the difference? And if you can do those 3 things initially, then that's half the key to commercial success, regardless of the style. And the other thing is you got to charge a fair price for it too. Yeah.
So I need you to solve what I call the Jeet Kune Do conundrum for me, right? So,
but no pressure. But no pressure.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's nobody watching this right now,
yeah.
And nobody's gonna see it afterwards.
Okay, right.
So here's the deal. Mom brings little Johnny into class to join the school, right?
Okay.
And I say to the mom, no. Let's say it's a Taekwondo school.
Okay.
So the instructor says to the mom, oh, are you familiar with General Choi? No, of course the mom's not familiar with General Choi. Right?
Sure.
Okay. Now let's say it's a Jeet Kune Do school. And you say to the mom, are you familiar with Bruce Lee? Of course she is, right? So
Right.
how come they're not more commercially successful Jeet Kune Do schools?
So I don't know the exact answer. In general, I would say that what I would think people would need to do is adjust their curriculum differently. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying to make it easy. You don't have to have. I don't have 10-year-old black belts or 11-year-old. I don't have it. You know, my kids got to train with me for a long time. You know, we don't. You know, so so it's not about giving away. It's not they're about giving it away. It's that most of that school you're talking about, it's very, what they have to do to get from A to B is very clear. It's very specific, right? And so that's what, like, the modern person, you know, that's what they want, kind of, right? And so I think part of it might be just the nature of Jeet Kune Do tends to be a little bit more like jazz, you know what I'm saying, versus classical music. You know what I'm saying? It's like very free flowing, and so it's kind of harder to, okay, what should I be practicing on, right? So I think that for, if you want to, I think the key to having more success would be initially to have more structure the first couple of years of training. I think that's, in my opinion, and maybe somebody might be saying, well, that's not what we do, right? But that would help, you know, kind of set that foundation. And then once someone's in the habit of coming, and it's kind of like, once they get to know you, you're the doctor, whatever you prescribe, they're going to do. Right. So once they've got this routine going, and then you can expand from there. So that would be my general thought. And also the other thing is that school that you just mentioned, the Taekwondo school down the street, it probably has frequent progress checks and belts, ranks, and tips and stripes. So there's this steady flow of check marks along the way, which is incredibly important for kids. We have some kind of test that kids does every 5 weeks. They do some kind of test. It may only be a 1 minute in class where they have to demonstrate, you know, a combination or a self-defense technique or a shoulder roll, you know, something like that at a certain level to get their, you know, their next check, so to speak. And but they know that's coming. So they're always preparing for something coming up, or patting themselves, they pat them on the back for the test they just passed, and focus on something else. And human nature, that seems to adhere really well for the way we are, you know, we are groomed, so to speak.
I can't remember his name, but there's a very well-known Shotokan instructor who has phenomenal retention. And I seem to recall that the story was, and he only teaches 9 kata, but he's got incredible retention.
I think you're talking about Buzz Durkin, who's a Wetty guy out of New Hampshire. Okay. I think. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's who pops to my mind. Buzz Durkin is an amazing guy. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years. And at Wetty, I think there's 8 kata, as a matter of fact, right? And that's all they do. And I'll tell you what, his retention is, I tell you what, to get to his school, he's in upstate New Hampshire. You literally, the community is like 4,000 people, right? But I got directions. It was basically, all right, this is before cell phones, like the first time I was there, right? Or at least I didn't have a cell phone. So this would have been like the late 80s. And it was like, all right, Dave, what you're going to do is you're going to drive down to the end of the street. You're going to see a big tree, turn right. When you see the cow on the corner, keep driving. And, you know, kind of like, and all of a sudden you drive over this hill and poof, there's this gorgeous standalone building, and he's got 400 students there. Yeah. And so what he would do really well is, first off, massive amount of emphasis and structure, right? Right. Yeah. But his spirit is present with that repetition, so that it doesn't get boring, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? He's all in. And, you know, it was interesting. I did some training, and we did some like leg striking, you know, drills, you know, and that I was going with his wife, Judy, who's an amazing martial artist herself, and she was like, "Are you okay? Am I doing it too hard?" Because what they do really well. He was like, "Oh yeah," it was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. See, because when I remember when I think I did meet him like at NAPMA or Maya or something back then also, and I thought to myself, okay, here's the thing: if we say that Jeet Kune Do is Wing Chun, boxing, and fencing, so we don't have a whole lot of variety of technique, there's got to be something we can learn from a Buzz Durkin approach. You see, because you could say he's got limited structure. So how does he get and keep 400 students, right? You had 900 students at one point.
I did at one location. Before we expanded, we had 903 students. It was probably about 1992 at our headquarters facility in one location. It was crazy. Yeah.
Okay, but you got to tell me the story, right? You got to tell me the story of Karate Kid hits the cinema, and when you walk up to the building, there's a line of people.
It's really true. So, I opened up a school 6 months out of high school in November of 1978. And, I kind of struggled, and, hey, I'm still struggling on sometimes. I mean, business is good, life is good, but there's still issues. I'm not saying there, but, I was painting houses for a little while. I was painting houses by day and teaching martial arts in the evening. And back then, there was almost no kids doing martial arts. I remember like in 1981, 82, I think I had the largest kids program in Sacramento County. By the way, there was about 18 martial arts schools then. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I did a paper for college that I was doing a business plan for martial arts school. And so I had to actually document it. And now there's like 250, right?
Wow.
So but I think I had 17 kids in my junior program, but I wasn't a guy that kept track of my statistics. I probably had 100 students, so 83 adults, 17 kids. Mm-hmm. And then Karate Kid comes out. Bang, and that was in like 84. And then I opened up a commercial school. That was late 84. And in like early 86, I opened a full-time school again. Or actually, I was still painting by day, but literally I'd go home, I'd shower, and I'd get to the school at 3:45 for my, a lot of part-time guys. I did that for years, the double shift. It's a rough life. I mean, it's a busy life, not a rough life, but, and there would be a line of parents. I remember this scene in my head vividly. I had this little 1,000-square-foot facility and pull up, and there was literally probably 6 or 7 people parents standing with their kids, waiting for me to open the door to enroll their kids in the school. It was like we blew up. From there to the mid-90s, we could not process the amount of students coming in. It was partially, it was the perfect storm. We knew what we were doing. I had my brother as my business partner, so I could really focus on teaching, and I was pretty good with the kids. I enjoyed it, and I seemed to have a knack for it. You know what I'm saying? So, and then he was kind of taking care of everything else. So I was all in on the mat. And then there wasn't a lot of, the supply and demand was such, there wasn't a lot of places to go. So we just, everybody came to us. And it was pretty remarkable times. Yeah, the only thing is that in 1993, we enrolled 567 members in one location in 1 year. I believe that's like 47 a month average. The only challenge is where we probably lost 520 every year. You know what I'm saying? So we were just churning. And now really the key, it's all about retention now. It's a retention business. It's getting students and keeping them.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned 1993. August of 1993, UFC 1 hits.
Yep.
What happened then?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it was not to get you wrong, but I think it was November, December of '93 when the first UFC was. What was interesting is, of course, I don't know about you, but I've been reading about the Gracie Challenge in Black Belt Magazine forever, right? There was nowhere to go, but so of course I remember watching the first UFC and the whole concept of what they were doing. I remember just like my heart beating, like I hope no one was going to get killed, and everything. And it was really interesting how they pitted style versus style. But I tell you what, in May of that year of '94, a gentleman named Cesar Gracie opened up a school about an hour and a half from me, and I opened up. 2 weeks after I got on the bandwagon real early on. It was because I saw that really. There's a lot of good that came from it in a lot of ways. And of course, there's things that, I think there's some ways it's been, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with MMA. I really respect the athletes. I respect the training protocols. There's so many, if you meet them individually, and I know a lot of guys, and I'm sure you do they're in almost every case respectful. So many of them came from traditional martial arts backgrounds. It's just the perception from the general public and how it views martial arts in general, I don't like as much. As far as, having respect for the athletes in the sport, I also don't really enjoy watching people get hurt. I love martial arts, but I like to see two really good high-level competitors. But when the guy gets knocked out and he's kind of like, even if my guy won, I'm happy my guy won, but I find myself kind of hoping the other guy's okay. And I almost feel kind of like I should be more evolved than to enjoy watching two guys hop in a cage and fight, but I still do really enjoy it. If that makes any sense.
It's a guilty pleasure. So now Brazilian Jiu Jitsu blows up. Mm-hmm. And not everybody jumps on the bandwagon. And so some people, their schools do not do as well. Their schools start to falter. Is that what you mean by they didn't stay relevant?
You know, I think that I don't think you need to know jujitsu to stay relevant. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I personally, in my opinion, I do a lot of jujitsu. You know, I love it all though. You know, it's not like
Well, yeah.
but that's probably where I spend a lot of more of my time than other stuff. Just because I love the workout, I love the competitive aspect of it. And you can't kickbox hard every day; you're going to get too much brain damage. You know, but you can grapple on a regular basis, and you kind of get that. It kind of satisfies a certain itch that can do. And I kind of feel like as I'm obligated as a martial arts instructor in this day and age that you ought to teach your students at least some self-defense as to what to do if they're on the ground. You know, 30 years ago, we didn't know what to teach them. So we had an excuse, but there's no excuses anymore. In my opinion, you know, there ought to be a certain amount of time. But what I did is I swung the pendulum real heavy to jiu-jitsu because that's what I was liking to do. And my students were going, hey, it's not really what I want to do, right? I had to adjust accordingly. So we do, like I said, we do before black belt, we have a separate standalone jiu-jitsu program that those are the guys that want to do that. But otherwise, we just integrate, you know, stuff that I want my daughter to know and my wife to know. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, just kind of some position training, general position training, you know, how to effectively get up to the best of your ability, that kind of thing. We don't spend a lot of time on submission, so to speak, with our regular students. But so I don't think that, to me, staying relevant, like if you look at Buzz Durkin, who is still teaching Wetjiru like he did 40 years ago and still doing just fine, you can, your heart has to be true with the art you're teaching. The worst thing you can do is start teaching something because that's what everybody else is doing and you think that's what you need to do to be successful. You know what I'm saying? Like when Taibo hits, everybody's going, oh, Taibo, you got to do that. And I'm going like, you know, we had a fitness kickboxing class. It was okay, but I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket. That's not where my heart is. My heart is not there. And it will never work for you. You know, so, but what you do have to do to stay relevant is you have to stay hungry. You know what I'm saying? You have to update your teaching protocol. You know, I mean, there's this whole nother level of service that you have to offer your students now that maybe you didn't 20, 30 years ago because they have so many different options to go with now. Back in the day, like if I'm going back to the 90s, you could be mediocre at business and martial arts and still make a living. Anymore, you can't do that. Like if you're supporting your family teaching martial arts, you got to be good. That's your starting. That's where you got to start.
Yeah. So you got to be realistic. You have to. Yeah. Is what you were talking about there? Your heart has to be in your art. Is that related to embedding a strong culture in your school?
Ask the question again.
Is what you were talking about there just now, your heart being in your art, is that related to the embedding of a strong culture?
Absolutely.
In your school?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah. You know, it's like, you know, we make it a point, like I said earlier, to try to really help people develop a love for their martial arts early, right? So that they, and then try to anchor that in. I want my students leaving, you know, obviously getting a workout, learning something new, but I want them leaving thinking, I'm glad I came. Those 4 words. Wow, I'm glad I came, you know? And to help them kind of try to really make sure that they understand that this is different. Martial arts is different from any other activity that you're going to do, right? And that starts with an instructor believing in it, because, you know, one of the things is like if a lot of times guys might hire a martial arts instructor from the outside. It's maybe started with that teaches a different style and come teach for me. And I'll tell you what, that never friggin' works in the long run unless that person from the outside can believe in the curriculum and the program that you have. Otherwise, it's hiring a mercenary. It's just, it might be temporary, but it's not going to work when things get tough.
Yep. What about Jeet Kune Do and kids? Because I think Michael Brown asked about that also, right? I remember in early years of discussions with my JKD colleagues, they were like, well, no, you can't teach kids. And I said, did you ever see a picture of Bruce Lee with Brandon Lee? And they go, yeah. I go, well, did he look like he was teaching him anything?
Right.
They go, yeah. I go, well, that's your answer right there.
I love it. I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
You know? And then similarly, the whole thing about Jeet Kune Do and ranking. Well, there's no belts in Jeet Kune Do. I go, right. What rank in Jeet Kune Do did Bruce Lee award to Dan Inosanto? They go third rank. I go, okay, but there's no belts in Jeet Kune Do. They go, right. I go, what rank did Bruce Lee assign to Dan Inosanto? They go third rank. I go, uh-huh. They didn't get my message. There might not be a belt, but there's a rank.
Mm-hmm.
Find something
Exactly.
to depict the rank. Doesn't have to
Exactly.
be a belt. It could be
Exactly.
whatever you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a question in there for you somewhere.
Yeah, it had to do with kids and Jeet Kune Do, right?
Right.
I think I don't remember, but the same. Like I said, having a really clear set of curriculum, I think is initially, and also I think the key thing is that you can. The other thing that people do when they start developing like requirements is you generally, in their enthusiasm to teach their students so much, what they do is they teach way too much, and then it becomes this rote memorization. So students come to class and they're just trying to memorize stuff, right? And so I think that if the key is to require less that you're going to actually test them on. You can still teach a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying? But like require just the core stuff initially. That's and we look at it like in class, we have all this stuff. The way the structure is, if you've got extra time, here's some different drills or here's different things you can learn or you can teach, and we call it martial arts candy. This is kind of extra credit. You know what I'm saying? It's just for the joy of learning. I don't care if you retain this or not. You go to a seminar, it's fun to learn new stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's fun. What do you do when you go to a Guru dance seminar, man? You spend your head spinning for hours. You came, 3 options and you got 30 seconds to practice those, and he shows you 4 more options, It's like, but it's cool to learn new stuff, right? So I think the same rules apply with kids. The other thing is that what I think the mistake, like I used to, at one time in the early 80s, I was like a competition school. We competed a lot, and I had at one point, a very small school, but I'll tell you what, all my students were good. And if there was the guy that had this bigger school, I was like going, yeah, sure, but look how good my students are. Sure, he has a lot more students. But you know what it was? It wasn't that I was such a great instructor. It was that all the people that really needed my program, I scared away because I was too hard too soon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so
it does.
I think what you got to do is that when people come in, you got to start at their level. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you cannot. The average American kid is way more softer than a couple generations ago, and it sounds like the old guys always say that about the younger generation, but here I got, this is absolutely true. So when I first started teaching, like when I opened up a school in November '78, so here it is, the middle of 1979. I used to always have my new kids, and there wasn't a lot of them coming in, but I'd test them on doing 10 push-ups, right? And almost every kid that came in that was 10 years old back in 1979 or 80 could do 10 push-ups. I promise you, the next 10-year-old that comes in your school, you ask him to do 10 push-ups, he'll probably get 3 that he can do. Yeah. They're just, because their bodies aren't developing the same, because they're spending a lot of time doing this, right?
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to make sure that we adjust our curriculum and we ease people into it. You know what I'm talking about? And I think that's what a lot of times maybe some guys don't do as much. Yeah, they throw them in too hard.
Let me ask you this. The parents are letting them do this a lot.
Yeah.
But are the parents bringing them to us because they can't find a way to get the kids off of this, so they want us to put that old school value into them? Is that why they're coming to us?
I think sometimes, most parents get the fact that they need their kids to be more, like even my, here's the other thing. We are told that the world is, moms, the average young family growing up, there's a perception, and not just moms, but I'm just going to pick on my wife, for example. She tends to be a little bit more fearful about the bad guy than I am, right? Meaning, so when my kids were little, she was way more, got to be careful, right? Which, hey, man, it's nothing wrong being careful. But the reality is 2019 is just as safe a time than there's ever been since the dawn of time. Yeah. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research on it. You probably have. It's just because the media, we see every bad thing that happens anywhere. It's on, someone took a video of it. So there's the perception that the world's a lot more dangerous. And I share that with you because what's happened is the whole psyche of that person is, don't let your kid go outside. Don't let them walk to school. Shelter them all the time. Because there's all these, the reality is your child's more likely to get struck by lightning than they are to be abducted by a stranger that you don't know. And that's
Right.
I'm not making that up. That's
Yeah.
FBI statistics. It's like
Yeah.
50 times a year that happens, where lightning happens a lot more often. What we have to teach our kids is to be leery about Uncle Bob and the piano teacher. And, that's a whole nother issue, right? But what I'm getting at is, so I think parents, well-intended parents, everything is so structured. You know what I'm saying? There's no Sandlot time that they're putting in activities like martial arts and gymnastics. And by the way, I think it's awesome, because if you look at martial arts, for example, I mean, a kid's body's designed to jump and crawl and roll and fall and climb, and we do that in our classroom. They do that. So it's and so I think we are benefiting. I think martial arts, I'll tell you what, you've been doing this a long time. It used to be parents had nothing to do with martial arts, but now it's one of those things that people consider doing with their kid, because people have seen the benefits. So I think some parents do. Most people, there's no book on how to be a parent. They're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, there is. There's your book.
Oh, yeah. Here you go. Yeah. Yes, sir.
There's your book. I actually had on one of the forums that I'm on, I got a question yesterday. How should a parent handle if their kid, listen to this, if their kid sees martial art as a lifestyle and not just a phase that they were going through?
Wouldn't that be terrible? Oh, golly.
Right? And I go, oh, but because is that the perception of a lot of parents? Oh, I think less to be karate now, but it's just a phase, and he'll grow out of it. Yeah.
I don't know. I think less and less. In the past, yes. Here's just from my perspective, when I open up a school, money from my folks, and the whole intention was, this is not going to be a career, Mom and Dad. This is going to help me get through college. That's all, right? That's all I'm going to do. And then my older brother was saying, come on, man, what the heck are you doing? Get a real job. And then he ended up being my partner, right? Which we still joke about. But the deal was that it wasn't a career. So because very few people were doing it, I would have never opened up my own school if I could have gone to work for somebody else. That just wasn't an option. And so, but now there's this whole generation of people that are growing up seeing the martial arts instructor drive a decent car. You know what I'm saying? The schools are no longer full of duct tape and and broken mirrors. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's really nice facilities now, and like I provide a really good living for my staff. They can this is a career for them. And so I think parents are seeing this as an option going forward that maybe they didn't in past generations. But I'll tell you what, I can't tell you how many kids that have gone through our program that are now successful, and they'll thank us. You've had the same thing happen in your school, right? They'll come back and they'll say, thank you, man. Without martial arts, I wouldn't have been able to be this. I have one of my students that's a psychiatrist. He said, everything I learned everything I do in my practice, I learned from you as a kid on the mat, right? Oh, cool. Yeah. But here's my point. So many of them leave to do other things, right? And we're kind of going, hey, this is, this is legit. So I think you still hear when people ask you what you do for a living, you tell them you teach martial arts, they go, what? You end up saying that but it's way more accepted now than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we got to start wrapping this up because I just got my first warning that I'm running out of power.
Yes, sir.
Confirm this for me. Is it true that in Junri's Taekwondo system, in the old days, that after black belt, there wasn't much to teach?
So I as you probably know, I trained with Junri for a long time, and I got my black belt under him. I got a 4-3 black belt with him. I trained with him for an amazing guy. Okay. And but yes, there was very little curriculum after black belt. He kind of added a couple forms. There was but there was not a lot. Just like there wasn't in American Kempo. When I got my black belt, I pretty much knew all the curriculum my instructor knew. That was kind of the way it was in most every system. They were very bottom heavy with curriculum.
Yeah. Okay. When I learned that, I almost passed out.
Really?
Because I thought to myself, how could one of the most successful martial art franchises, right, lack curriculum? And how come, again, which is my conundrum, JKD, we got so much curriculum, right, but we struggle to put it out. And that's when I realized exactly what you said. Don't try to teach so much so soon. Because we have depth of material.
Yes, totally. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got stuff that we can teach people for years.
Yes, sir.
We just have to learn how to organize it.
Yep, I think that's absolutely the key. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's no reason why, with the depth of knowledge that you know, that all the lineage under Guru Dan, all of his guys, all the instructors have, there's lifetimes of knowledge there, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just a matter of not you know, just piecemealing out over time. You know, I think
Yeah.
is the way to go.
Well, hey, just from delving into your brain a little bit today, I think we've taken a step towards that. So I want to say thank you for spending the time with me. I really appreciate it. I know there's other things you could be doing.
Oh, it's just great fun. Nothing funner than talking about martial arts with a good guy like you. It's all good, man. Happy to do it. I'm honored to be on the talk.
All right. Well, I know you're going to be on the road next Friday, right? But if you have a chance, you should log on and see, you know, the guy I'm going to be talking to next week. Right?
Yeah, I do know the guy. Yeah, you're going to have Tom Callis on. That will be a wild ride. He's always gotten something interesting to say. He's an amazing guy,
Yep,
brilliant guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is. All right. Well, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Take care,
Right.
man.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye. I'm trying to get out of here.
Me too. Okay. All right. Before the power on my iPhone cancels me out. That was episode number 76 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with Hanshi Dave Kovar. You guys, I'm going to go through the comments and reply to stuff, and maybe Hanshi Dave will do the same. Like we just said, next week, around probably the same time, 6 p.m. next Friday, I'll be on with another martial art, a great martial art mind, and that's Tom Callis. So if you guys check in at 6 p.m. next Friday, sign up for notifications when we go live on Facebook, and then when I post the final edit videos on the YouTube channels. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D Woods, and that's about it, right? I'll see you guys back here next Friday for another episode of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you soon. Take care.